In this 25th anniversary year of September 11th, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation continues to honor America's heroes. Heroes like Fire Lieutenant Michael Wells, who was inspired by 9/11 to serve his community. After 14 dedicated years of service, he lost his battle with occupational cancer, leaving behind his wife, Katie, and their 3 children. Tunnel to Towers honored Lieutenant Wells by paying off the family's mortgage in recognition of his sacrifices. Donate $11 monthly and amplify your impact with a car or land donation. Go to T2T.org.
The Rush Hour with James Golden. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Attention Ditto Heads. Attention Bo Scouts.
Goes by the pseudonym Bo Snerdley.
It's time for the Soul of Excellence.
He is a radio host here in New York.
The Rush Hour is on the air.
Rush.
Now here's James Golden.
19 seats could be at risk all throughout the South. The question will be the timing. Is this a 2028 play? Is this a 2026 play? There are some primaries here coming up, not until later in the cycle. August 6th, there's one in Tennessee. That's Steve Cohen's seat. That's a majority minority district. That's in August 6th. The one Democratic seat there. The Jim Clyburn seat in South Carolina. That is the Democratic seat in South Carolina. That's a June 9th primary. Jamie, this shows you the ramifications long term for this ruling.
Absolutely. Just think about that number, 19 seats in play. And let's look at this politically. Laura, you talked about confusion going into this race. We're worried about voter suppression. Apart from the long-term impact, we are going to see people take advantage of that confusion. There is going to be, these midterms are so high stakes that anybody who thinks they can take advantage, on the state level of this decision, there is going to be a scramble to see if they can, because each side thinks this is an existential midterm, with the House especially.
Yeah.
Welcome, my friends, to the Wednesday edition of Bo Snerdley's Rush Hour, fastest hour in American media. That was an excerpt from the coverage on CNN over the Supreme Court's decision today released limiting key provisions of the Voting Rights Act of 1964. Legislation that passed overwhelmingly in Congress. Well, Republicans helped get it passed because Democrats were filibustering it. Democrats did not want it to pass, even in the wake of the assassination of John Kennedy and the elevation of Lyndon Baines Johnson to the presidency in the year before, 1963. Today, the Supreme Court issued what is being called in all corners a major decision. This was expected, and the decision has, as you just heard, is going to have profound and long-term impact on this nation. The Washington Post coverage of this says it was an ideologically divided 6-3 ruling. The conservative justices created a higher bar for the law's powerful provision that allows states to use race to draw maps that help minority communities. Helps those minority communities elect candidates of their choice. Section 2, as it's called, as it's known, is aimed at combating discriminatory gerrymandering that weakens the power of Black, Latino, Native American, and Asian voters. Now, I will say that there is a lot that I agree with this decision. I will also say that this decision saddens me in a way. Why does it sadden me? Well, it saddens me because as a nation, we're still fixated on race. And that, I said and like liberals so that they can pay attention to that. And And the complications of race in the elections is something we cannot deny. This case, the Louisiana case, which was what the Supreme Court ruled on, started out in 2022. Black voters, civil rights groups sued Louisiana using Section 2 of the Voting Rights Bill Act, saying that the new map that was drafted after the 2020 census shortchanged black people. The map had only one black majority district out of 6 districts that were in Louisiana. Now, black people make up 1/3 of the state's population. Now, on its face, that sounds terribly unfair, right? But it depends when you say population. Where are those populations? If those populations are all concentrated in one place, 2 places, well, then the map could make sense. And if the majority of the population is scattered there, that's where the one district is, this main district. And then you have other black people scattered in other districts. Well, then should race be used for those other districts? Well, a federal court said, yeah, you got to go back to the table and redraw the map. So Louisiana drew another map. And the Post says that map was drawn in part to protect Republican incumbents, including Speaker Mike Johnson and House Majority Leader Steve Scalise. So they created a second black district that meanders across the state all the way from Baton Rouge to Shreveport, where a lot of black folks are. It just stretches like a serpent. And then, so conservatives drew the map that gave blacks a second district in Louisiana. Isn't that ironic? And then a bunch of self-described non-black voters sued. You can't do this. We're being disenfranchised. The non-black voters brought their case to the Supreme Court again, and the justices decided to hold off on a ruling, asked both sides to address whether creation of the second black majority district violated the 14th and 15th Amendments. And they took up the case again. And this time they ruled. Now, I'm going to just say, why does this case sadden me a little bit? Well, when you have 1/3 of the population that's black in Louisiana, and you have 6 seats and they only end up with 1, then that doesn't sound right. Right? Right? But, my friends, look at Massachusetts. You've got you have a fair percentage of that state that are Republicans, and they have zero representation. You look at what Virginia just did to Republicans. If they had their way, they just screw you, Republicans. You're done. Yeah, you may be half the electorate. We're only going to give you 1 seat. It's the same principle, isn't it? Look what they tried to do, thinking about doing in Maryland that failed. Same thing. Republicans, sizable part of the population there, the governor and the Democrats there tried to say, well, you only deserve 1 seat. Look at California. Look at California. California has rigged that state so much with it, and Illinois as well, another rigged state. And so if you gerrymander to protect your political party, then that's supposedly okay. But if you do it in a way that protects your party, but race is involved, then people have issues with it. Should race matter? I leave the question to you. Should it matter? Well, we know under the Constitution it shouldn't, and that's what the court ruled today. The federal government's supposed to not be in the business of picking winners and losers based on race. So, I think that it's now the existential threat to Democrats is that because they've relied on this so heavily, and because Democrats have tied their success to black voters, or black voters have tied their whatever they tie to Democrats with the Democrats, this has now come back to bite them. And it could end up costing them, you heard the open, could end up costing them up to 19 seats. 19 congressional seats, maybe. No one knows at this point. Meanwhile, in Florida today, Princess Diana's favorite governor did it, well, on his way to doing it, he gave out the map. The Florida legislature today passed the map. They might pick up Republicans in Florida 4 more seats. In Florida. Thanks to the new maps that have been presented. I do not want to hear Obama. I don't want to hear people like Spanberger complain one bit about what's happening in Florida. You all thought it was okay, by the way, the Virginia redistricting, still uncertified. Supreme Court there said not so fast. Laws may have been broken. Maybe this was done incorrectly. Wouldn't it be ironic that after all this fuss, if Virginia is thrown out, Florida succeeds, and you have this ruling. And by the way, Louisiana has a primary coming up, as you've heard. Don't know what's going to happen there because this district now has been ruled illegal, which could mean another gain of a seat for Republicans. Folks, there is a lot going on here with voting, a lot. And today's news, yeah, this could be a monumental day for the future of the United States. If the Democrats end up losing close to 20 House seats.
Rush. This is The Rush Hour with James Golden.
Snerdley.
The Rush Hour with James Golden. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
James Golden, known popularly as Bo Snerdley.
This is The Rush Hour with James Golden.
Rush.
Yeah, folks, big deal. Now, although the justices today struck down Louisiana's map, the court's conservative majority upheld the constitutionality of the Voting Rights Act itself. Now, the liberals are not going to be happy hearing that. They're going to say, yeah, well, they gutted the key provision. I guarantee you that's what they're going to say, but it's still constitutional as far as the justices are concerned. Mississippi, the state of Mississippi, looks like they are going to call for some redistricting as well. The governor there, Tate Reeves, recently announced he was going to summon the legislature back in session for a special session, 21 calendar days after the Supreme Court ruling was released, whenever it came. So you can expect sometime in the next 3 weeks that Mississippi legislators will be called back in to redraw their lines. Don't know what that's going to look like. Florida, as I said, looks like they drew a map that could yield 4 seats. all of a sudden the jubilation over Virginia is no longer, especially since it's held up in court. I want to talk about some other things today. We will, of course, be speaking with this throughout the rest of the week and the weekend, but you have the gist of it. I love it when things are go viral from a long time ago. And I especially love this one because it features Johnny Carson, the greatest late-night talk show host of my lifetime. I didn't watch the Jack Paar series, so I don't know. He's also another one listed. Who's Jack Paar? Yeah, he was before Carson, listed as one of the great TV late nights. But Johnny Carson opened up the 1981 Oscars. They were supposed to happen on the day after Ronald Reagan's assassination attempt. At the same hotel, by the way, in Washington, D.C. That's when, and let's listen in to Johnny Carson, cut 4 from 1981.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure that all of you here and most of you watching tonight understand why we delayed this program for 24 hours. Because of the incredible events of yesterday, that old adage, the show must go on, seemed relatively unimportant. The Academy, ABC Television, and all of us connected with the show felt because of the uncertain outcome, as of this time yesterday, it would have been inappropriate to stage a celebration. But the news today is very good, as you know. The President is in excellent condition at last reports. He's been conducting business.
That is for President Reagan, who liberals despise, but listen to them.
And he happens to be in very good spirits. After all, you must remember this is a man who yesterday, while he was in the hospital unable to speak, wrote on a sheet of paper, "All things considered, I'd rather be in Philadelphia." So tonight the show does go on. Now, 2 weeks ago, President Reagan videotaped an opening greeting for this occasion. We were in contact with the White House about 2 hours ago, and it was the President's express wishes that we use that introduction. And I might add that you might like to know that he also asked for a television set in his room so he could view this program tonight.
That is amazing, ladies and gentlemen. He went on to say that they were going to play a video from President Reagan, and they did. He had made a video prior to open up the Oscars that year. What a contrast, late night then, and what passes for late night now.
The Rush Hour with James Golden. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
James Golden, known popularly as Bo Snerdley.
This is The Rush Hour with James Golden.
Rush.
James Golden, Snerdley with you here. Fastest hour in American media underway. Let's turn our attention to a few other things in the news. Cut 13, you know the voice by now, even if you live outside of the borders of the Apple.
New York City faces a budget crisis of a historic magnitude. We inherited a deficit larger than any since the Great Recession. Years of mismanagement and chronic under-budgeting, alongside a structural imbalance between what New York City sends to the state and what we receive in return, have taken a toll. We cannot close this deficit with savings alone. We need new revenue. And we need a structural reset in our relationship with the state. That is the only way to meet our legal obligation to pass a balanced budget, and to do so without imposing a financial burden onto the backs of working people. I'm glad to partner with Speaker Menon as we call upon Albany and deliver a balanced budget. Together, we are extending the executive budget deadline from this coming Friday until May 12th, because a crisis of this scale cannot be solved without state action. I want to be clear. We are not simply asking others to act. New York City is doing our part. We are committed to governing with the fiscal responsibility this moment demands. Speaker Menon and I have already identified meaningful savings, and we will continue that work carefully, deliberately, and without cutting the services that New Yorkers rely on. But we cannot do it alone. That is why we are standing together this morning to underscore what is at stake and to call on Albany to deliver additional revenue.
Yeah, just call on people to just fork over money to New York. Now, New York says they fork over money to the state, don't get as much back. You know, one thing that might help is if both the city and state of New York decide that they want to stop funding illegal immigration. They could save a lot of money there. And not only would they be saving money, they'd save money all over their budgets, across the school budgets, for instance. If the deportations of illegal immigrants took place as they were intended to, not only in New York, but in places like the L.A. Unified School District, where they're already losing students and have lost students, all over the country. The impact on medical service, the impact on housing, the impact everywhere. Their sanctuary policies have made it impossible for them to balance their budget, along with some of the other things. It's not just illegal immigration. I don't want to scapegoat illegal immigrants as being the sole responsibility, because Mandami said some key things. He said that this has been years of mismanagement. Okay. Name names. Who mismanaged? What did they mismanage? Don't say it. If you're going to manage it correctly, then do it. And name the names. Name what you're doing. Cut the programs that are wasteful. I just say, because it's one of the most obvious, that illegal immigration and the sanctuary policies are contributing to the mess in New York City and New York State and other blue cities and states. But what about some of the other giveaway programs? Meanwhile, you're out bashing the millionaires, out bashing the billionaires, the people that pay more taxes than anyone else and demanding that they pay more and bashing them in the meantime. Maybe you shouldn't be spending $30 million on a city grocery store. Maybe you shouldn't be spending a lot of other millions on pipe dreams. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Speaking of paying and how your government works, cut 11. James Comer, listen to this report. This ought to tell you what is wrong with government in big ways.
I know you're holding a full House Oversight Committee markup today to consider legislation aimed at protecting taxpayer dollars and rooting out rampant fraud in federal programs. So what are some specific proposals that you think this can accomplish?
I have a bill focused on what's called the do not pay list, and that is exactly what it sounds like. The people who are listed on the do not pay are individuals and businesses who either owe federal taxes, who have been indicted, who are under investigation for fraud. There is a list out there that shows bad actors, but yet most government agencies don't take the time to look at that list, and they continue to pay these fraudsters. They go from Medicaid fraud to hospice fraud to daycare fraud. It's the same people in the same businesses, yet these government agencies don't use the resources that are there. So my legislation requires these government agencies to put in the software that would kick out anyone on the do not pay list. I mean, that sounds like something the government should be doing, but let me assure you, the government is not. These agencies, it's almost like they're not concerned about fraud. So my legislation puts more guardrails and hopefully will significantly reduce fraud in the future.
All right, Mr. Chairman.
That's amazing. The government doesn't, with all of this, as big as the government is, the payers just hop from one program to another. Nobody in government bothers to check. With all the technology we have, with everything that we have at our disposal in terms of computer software, database software, all of it. The government hasn't implemented this, and it's just now being written into law. If you've got these people that have been caught stealing, then when their name pops up, don't pay them. Don't send more tax dollars to people that have frauded you. It's amazing. Joni Ernst, cut 10. And she had to say more fraud and deceit. Listen to this.
I uncovered that the Biden administration had given Planned Parenthood affiliates through the Paycheck Protection Program over $90 million, forgave those loans even though they were ineligible. And even worse than that, they tried to obscure the fact that they had done this illegally by using the code word Benghazi. What does Benghazi have to do with Planned Parenthood? Absolutely nothing. But instead of using the name Planned Parenthood, they substituted the code word Benghazi. That way, if anyone tried to FOIA or search for information on Planned Parenthood, it wouldn't be found.
Government workers did that. Those who did this should be also held to account under the Biden administration, and Planned Parenthood should be forced to send every single dime of that $90 million back with interest, because they were never eligible for it. Now, speaking of Planned Parenthood, I have something that I am debating whether I'm going to play or not. If we do, I'm not going to play at this moment. It'll be probably the last soundbite of the day. Brandon Gill was asking a scholar who's advocating for abortion some really tough questions at a committee on the FACE Act. That's the act to keep, protesters and all that business with. He asked this woman some very tough questions. Not going to play it at this moment. I want to move on right now to Pete Hegseth. Let's get with cut 7. Pete Hegseth testifying today before the House Armed Services Committee. This is what it sounded like.
Every policy we pursue, every budgetary item we request serves to ensure the department remains laser focused on increasing lethality and survivability of our forces from the front lines to the factory floors. This is a historic budget, as you said, Mr. Chairman. This is a fiscally responsible budget. This is a warfighting budget. And speaking of warfighting, the topic of Iran, I'm sure will come up today, which I very much welcome discussing. I look forward to sharing the incredible successes of our military, achieved in a matter of weeks. President Trump, unlike other presidents, has had the courage to ensure Iran never gets a nuclear weapon, and he's ironclad in that. We had the best negotiator in the world driving that deal. The biggest challenge, the biggest adversary we face at this point are the reckless, feckless, and defeatist words of congressional Democrats and some Republicans 2 months in. I remind you, 2 months in.
All right, enough. Now let's switch over to some of the feckless words. This is California Representative John Garamendi, cut 8, and this is what he said when his term was up. Here we go.
Secretary Hegseth, you have been lying to the American public about this war from day one, and so has the president. You have misled the public about why we are at war. You and the president have offered ever-changing reasons for this war. You've misled the public about the progress of the war. While the military has executed this war with tactical success, the strategy has been an astounding incompetence, doing immense economic damage to America.
Mr. Chairman,
and the world.
Chairman, with the personal attack on the secretary, he should have an opportunity to respond.
He certainly will.
No, at the time you're doing it.
It's the gentleman's time. He can use it as he sees fit and add an extra 5 seconds to Mr. Garamendi's time.
Thank you. You and the president offer ever-changing reasons for the war. You have misled the public about the progress of the war. While the military has executed this war with tactical success, the strategy has been an outstanding example of incompetence. This war of choice is a political and economic disaster at every level. Despite the president's promise to lower the cost of living, gas prices are up 40%, and inflation is soaring so much for lowering the cost of living. The president has got himself and America stuck in the quagmire of another war in the Middle East. He's desperately trying to extricate himself from his own mistakes. It is in America's and indeed the world's interest that he succeed in that. I yield back.
Well, Pete Hegseth didn't have a response because he yielded back his time. He didn't have a back and forth, I should say, with Garamendi, but he did have a response. And here is Hegseth's response to what you just heard from this California Democrat. Cut 9, Secretary Wawa, Secretary Hegseth, Secretary Wawa.
I didn't get a chance. I didn't see a question in the statement from the congressman. I hope you appreciate how reckless it is. When I said reckless, feckless, and defeatist of congressional Democrats at the beginning, that came after watching you say the same thing on CNN this morning, a quagmire. My generation served in a quagmire in Iraq and Afghanistan, years and years of nebulous missions and utopian nation building that led us to nothing. What we have right now, the way you stain the troops when you tell them 2 months in, Congressman, you should know better. Shame on you. Calling this a quagmire 2 months in. The effort, what they've undertaken, what they've succeeded, the success on the battlefield that could create strategic opportunities, the courage of a president to confront a nuclear Iran, and you call it a quagmire, handing propaganda to our enemies? Shame on you for that statement. And statements like that are reckless to our troops. Don't say I support the troops on one hand, and then a 2-month mission is a quagmire. That's a false equivalation. Who are you cheering for here? Who are you pulling for? Our troops are doing incredible work. They've done incredible things for the entirety of this mission and achieved incredible battlefield successes. And you sit there and go on TV for your clickbait about quagmires. It undermines the mission. Your hatred for President Trump blinds you to the truth of the success of this mission and the historic stakes that the president is addressing, which the American people support. Iran's been at war with us for 47 years. You want to talk about a forever war? For 2 months, this president has stared them down. He's going to get a better deal than anyone ever has and ensure that Iran never has a nuclear weapon. I know the American people support that mission, despite your loose talk and words like quagmire.
Boom. All right, last soundbite of the day, folks. I said I'm going to play it. Brandon Gill talking to an abortion advocate this morning in hearings. Listen to this. I warn you, this is tough to hear.
You're an advocate for abortion, for abortion policy. What's your favorite type of abortion?
I am an advocate for patients having access to the full realm of reproductive health care.
But do you have a preferred method of abortion that you like?
I do not.
Let me read through a couple different methods, and I want to get your take on how much you like these. The first type is called a suction abortion. This is when the cervix is dilated and a strong suction, 29 times the power of a household vacuum cleaner, tears the baby's body apart and sucks it through the hose into a container. Do you prefer that method?
I stand by my former testimony.
That sounds kind of gross, doesn't it? Sounds pretty gruesome. Do you agree? It does to me.
I stand by how I answered your question fully and accurately.
Okay, what about this one? This one is called dilation and curettage. After dilation of the cervix, a sharp looped knife is inserted into the uterus. The baby's body is cut into pieces and extracted, often by suction. Do you prefer that method?
What I believe we are here to talk about today is the FACE Act. We are not here to talk about
I'm asking
the
you, you're
legality
a
of
pro-abortion
abortion.
advocate. I'm asking if you prefer the dilation and curettage method.
I am an access to reproductive health care advocate.
You don't want to talk about abortion itself. Why is that?
I would prefer to talk about the reason that the committee called the hearing.
Is it because it's uncomfortable to talk about?
Would prefer
it should be uncomfortable.
I would prefer, if you would let me finish my statement, to talk about the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, which is what I was asked to come
what that access gets. How about this one? It's called dilation and evacuation. Forceps are inserted into the uterus, grabbing and twisting the baby's body to dismember him or her. If the head is too large, it must be crushed in order to remove it. Do you prefer that method?
I would prefer to talk about the reason the hearing was called and the basis of my expert testimony.
It's uncomfortable to hear this, isn't it? It is. I think it is, because it's barbaric and evil. How about this one? It's called the saline injection. It's when a 20% salt solution is injected through the mother's abdomen into the baby's amniotic fluid. The baby's skin is burned off. The baby ingests the solution and dies of salt poisoning, dehydration, and hemorrhaging of the brain. Do you prefer that method?
I would prefer to talk about the subject of the hearing.
This is the subject of the hearing. This is about protests outside of abortion clinics. I'm asking you about abortion.
I stand by my prior testimony.
Okay. I wouldn't want to talk about this either if I were you, because it is barbaric and evil.
And with that, my friends, we will go to a break and we'll be right back.
Rush. This is The Rush Hour with James Golden.
Oh, Snerdley.
The Rush Hour with James Golden. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
My friends, we are going to leave you today with the music of an American giant, recognized internationally for the music that he brought to the world. Edward Kennedy Ellington, known as Duke Ellington, one of the greatest composers, band leaders, pianists in our history. Born in Washington, D.C., raised in Washington, D.C. Back in the days of the Cotton Club up in Harlem, was there. One of the pioneers of the big band jazz era. A master of musicians. If you listen to the song Sir Duke by Stevie Wonder, that's, of course, one of the many, many tributes to Sir Duke, Duke Ellington, born on this day in 1899. May God bless, protect each and every single one of you, your families, your loved ones. Love and gratitude, my friends, for your being here with me. Allowing me to be with you. The sweet sounds of Lotus Blossom. I bid you adieu. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Bo Snerdley's Rush Hour. You can hear Bo Snerdley's Rush Hour weekdays at 4 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
This is Roger Stone with a serious warning for you. The U.S. dollar has lost 97% of its purchasing power since 1912. Your savings are exposed, and gold and silver remain the final hedge against currency devaluation, inflation, and ongoing economic uncertainty worldwide. So call 844-272-2428 now to get your free gold and silver guide from American Sovereign Bullion and learn how to protect your wealth with gold and silver. Call 844-272-2428 or visit dyingdollar.com. That's dyingdollar.com.